of the meeting, but I just thought to bring it out to say that a lot of times parents and guardians, caregivers, they are interested in funding for before and after school care, which is normally a grant funded program. We don't do that with the tax money. We do it with the grant money. So I just wanted to clear that up to say that that would be talked about in the curriculum portion. And if we could get information on what needs to happen to make it more available to families to have before and after school care. Thank you.
Any other questions surrounding the budget? Then we will have this is an action item at our and a roll call vote when we get down to action items. Thank you very much, Lisa, for putting that together and your due diligence in getting us a budget for next year's school year. So thank you very much for that. Moving on from there, we have our consent agenda. Mrs. Greco.
I'd like to motion that we approve consent agenda items F1 to N2 as a group.
I have a second by Mr. Groden. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you very much, Mrs. Greco. Moving on from there, we have information, reports, and discussions. Board roundtable. I'll start off with Mrs. Greco.
I know, right? I was trying to remember, I was trying to bring up my calendar because that's how I can remember what happened. Was the musical since our last meeting?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I went to the musical. I was trying to read the show. I didn't see Miss Stalter there, so we hung out in the back. But I did go see the musical. Our students did a wonderful job, and I laughed a lot.
Okay.
Ms. Gallagher.
I have nothing to report tonight, but I just wanted to thank Lisa for all she's done with regard to our budget preparation, the planning, and what she does for the district. Thank you.
Mr. Groden.
I second the shout out, nothing to report after that.
Mrs. LaRusso.
I've been very busy. Very. I went to trap, watched Love in It. The students are doing a great job. I also attended Legally Blonde. I went to a wellness committee meeting, and I want to go over some of that during the report, which is next. We were the only school in Sullivan County, according to Sullivan 180, who got a perfect score on our wellness policy. So I just want to share that. I think that's a phenomenal job that we got a perfect score. I attended BOCES's budget presentation along with Trustee Riley, President Crumley, and Dr. Evans. And this 2 weekends ago, I attended Miss Sullivan County, where 2 of our students are title holders. We have a pre-K student, my granddaughter, title holder. And we have a 2nd grade student named Anna, who is a title holder as well. So they'll be out doing a lot of events. You guys will see these little ones out. So very proud of Monticello. And is all I have to report.
Thank you very much, Mrs. LaRusso. Mrs. Riley.
All right, thank you. I have nothing to report besides going to the Sullivan County BOCES budget meeting, which I was really, I always love to see what they're doing in CTEC. They had a great display of the animal science program. It's always a big win there. And I actually talked with a teacher that I knew as a tech shop teacher, but now he has a music production program. And that was neat to see. So
Thank you guys to the students who wanted us to come over.
yeah,
Students.
yeah, Sullivan West, or was it Sullivan West?
One was Monticello, one was Sullivan West.
But they asked us, Sullivan West asked us to come over because the young men there were asking to come see, have Monticello come over and see their program that was about agriculture and heavy equipment. So it was really cool. Yeah. Thanks.
Natural resources.
Natural resources.
Mrs. Dalton.
I was able to enjoy both Friday and Saturday nights performances of Legally Blonde. I attended the varsity track meet in Port Jervis. I was able to catch our modified track meet in Pine Bush, which was freezing. And I've sat through several spring break varsity track practices joyfully this past week.
Did you not also have a graduation committee meeting?
That was I think prior to the
Was that
last
prior?
meeting,
Oh,
it was
okay.
Monday and then we met Thursday.
Sweet.
so. Upcoming.
Thank you, Mrs. Stalter.
I don't have anything to report.
Ms. Jersey,
I went to the Academy of Finance Senior Dinner, which is always a joy to see how they plan their futures and their presentation. And that's it.
I also attended the BOCES, annual meeting, which is always a very well put together, presentation. They do, put out quite a spread. So anybody who wants to attend next year, they do put out quite a spread. It's, quite the evening. And thank you to them for putting that out. Yep, softball games, track meets, not as many track meets. It's a shame that they're all away this year, but, thank you to everybody for doing all that you do.
President Crowley,
Yo,
can I make mention that the high school seniors are selling flowers, and I believe it ends tomorrow since they are not here, for money for their class trip. I think their prom is on May 1st, but if anybody's interested in buying flowers, I think they come, honestly, maybe from the greenhouse, but they're the big hanging baskets, and they're actually very reasonably priced, and the proceeds goes to the high school.
do you know if they're online?
I don't know, Miss Hurley actually did, they might be, she did a beautiful parent square outlining all the stuff that was
Alright.
available. I
Yeah.
printed the flyer off of there, so is that a yes, they're online?
Oh, I don't know about mine, but her calendar was amazing.
Yeah, so it may be, I don't know.
Thank you very much. Moving on from there, we have our policy committee update. I'll throw it over to Dr. Evans.
Thank you, President.
Oh,
Crowley.
wait, no, sorry, I skipped one completely. Pardon me. Didn't mean to cut you off.
Reports.
We have our director reports. I know you had a couple of things there, Victoria, so, almost ran right over it. So we do have our, director reports this evening. Any questions, surrounding those? Mrs. LaRusso?
I do, for the school violence program, it says fearless. What no-cost programs and workshops will they be offering for our students?
So can you just repeat that question, Victoria? I'm sorry.
It was for fearless.
Was that underneath Lyle?
Yeah, it's underneath Lyle. It used to be, I think it used to be called Safe Passages. Now it's fearless.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that, I can ask him what that program is and get back to you.
Yeah, I'm just curious what programs, what no at-cost programs they're gonna be offering our students.
Okay. Yeah, I can find out for you.
Okay, thank you.
You're
And
welcome.
then, I want to say that Christine Hoffman from the cafeteria, she's doing a phenomenal job. And at the wellness committee, I had questions about breakfast. Because I know that they're offering whole wheat or not, it's nothing but sugar, Pop-Tarts, and there's muffins. And I'm like, we can't bring cupcakes to school because of so much sugar. And then in her report, she said that breakfast, well, there are no sugar limits in the school meal programs as of yet. That's mind blowing to me that.
Yep.
So. My issue here is if we are trying to raise healthy students, we need to do something with this highly processed sugar. I know she's saying starting July 1st, they're gonna work on it. And she's limited things and she's really trying to change things. But if we're doing a hard no cell phone policy, why aren't we doing a hard no processed food for breakfast policy?
Dilly.
Right, because
So, I don't disagree with the sentiment. However, there are some pretty significant regulations on what's allowed, and certainly we can go below what's allowed. Well, we could do something like that. However, the products that are available, if we were to go, let's say Whole Foods, no added sugar, the food offerings that we would be beholden to would have a significant cost compared to what the current product is. That's not to say it's impossible, but that's just to say what the reality would be, not to mention how student behaviors may or may not change relative to participating in breakfast. Now, I would like to think that if you're lowering their sugar and processed food, that you're going to see some payoff elsewhere relative to student health and emotional well-being and everything else. But the initial bump might be a lack of participation. However, if that's something that you want us to come back with more information on and consider for next year, we can do that. We did, this year, the focus was on reducing processed food offerings at the lunch. Right, so we did make progress there, not where we want to be, but we have made progress there. Breakfast, we haven't looked at that yet.
Because I mean, that's why I brought it up before. I remember we talked about it before, but he's like, I knew there was a whole bunch of sugar because my kids are telling me they're eating. I was like, Pop-Tarts, are you kidding me? You know, it's just kind of like, that's so, regardless if it's whole wheat or not, that is nothing, that stuff is terrible. And I think we need to examine that. I know that during our wellness committee meeting, there was talk about, I think it's in here too, about having fresh fruit available towards the end of the day for our athletes and our band students as well. So filling up the carbs at the end, middle of the day, or however the regulations have to be, so that our students have full bellies towards the end of the day, which I think is important.
And on that topic, have we sat down like just with some of the other schools? Because I've noticed that they're moving, you know, Tri-Valley, it's not just, Roscoe and Rough, right, anymore. You're seeing it, change throughout the county a little bit. Is there any, you know, way that we could maybe sit down and see what some of our counterparts are doing to combat this? I mean, are they buying from different places, or are they, you know, like maybe an informational thing? I mean, I'm seeing it as I'm out there, even Tri-Valley, I was surprised how far they've gone over, I don't know, the last couple of years or whatever too. I was taken back, but like, I don't know, maybe they have something that we don't know, or, you know, I don't know. I just know that health is kind of important for our kids, so.
Kind of. If you have sugar in the morning, it offsets your entire day just from the word go. And then people are dependent on sugar for the rest of the day. So it's just preparing to fail.
Well, it does look like in Kristen's report or in the report, that there are people from our cafeteria going out and investigating some of these possibilities and looking into it. And to Vicky's point, you know, they are looking into the breakfast and looking to make changes to get that below, you know, what we're allowed to, and bring that below. So, you know,
I think she's doing a phenomenal job.
and I think we're moving in the right direction. And we've changed course from where we were 2 years ago.
100%. And there's certain things that she's doing, like the roast pork, or she's doing something to bring it all on campus and to make it all here and to barbecue and all. That's great, but we really need to work on breakfast, because I think breakfast is, with my kids, like my son has ADHD, you give him sugar, I don't want to hear Mr. Keezer calling. You know, and it's just, this is the reality of the world that we're in.
So we have made improvements to our lunch offerings.
Mhm.
And there is a lot more, you know, maybe not directly school district, but Sullivan 180 hosts a lot of professional development for cafeteria staff that we send our people to, and that they attend quite regularly.
Good to hear.
So I think, you know, there's certainly room for growth, and we will be targeting breakfast next year. I certainly agree with everything you've said relative to sugar and that. It's just a matter of how do we go about doing it within the confines of the federal guidelines.
And I know our high school students have definitely made comments that the food was much better today than it was. I mean, like I've heard it from multiple kids, but I didn't know about the sugar and the boost in the morning, so.
Can't policy committee say that we're committed to not have, that the policy is that we're not going to have our kids imbibe or consume so many carbs in the morning, and actually put a limit on it? Because you're talking about Pop-Tart is between 50 and 77 grams of carbs, which is equivalent to 6 light and sweet at Dunkin' Donuts. So yeah, they are going to be zooming into class. They are going to be a discipline habit. They're going to crash summarily 20 to 30 minutes afterwards. And then you're going to have first period, second period teachers kicking them because they fell asleep, and it's not their fault. So yeah, I'm all into, can we look into breakfast options to be way healthier next year?
So yes, we can look into that for sure. Relative to the policy question, the wellness committee, as Vicky pointed out, has drafted updates to the wellness policy. I have a meeting scheduled with Mr. Jasper tomorrow to go over those changes, and that policy will come to policy committee probably at the next meeting.
We have one more meeting. I mean, the policy is very long, but it hits on everything by law we have to hit on.
Yeah.
That's why I think it's one of the longest policies we might have.
And there's also budget considerations surrounding supplying certain things.
Will that come back to us? Like, can we see like what the price difference is? Is that something that Kristen,
Yeah.
have on hand to show us?
That's available. But a lot of it also depends on how much labor is needed to prep the food. Right, so if you are going to more Whole Foods, sometimes there's different prep involved than, unpacking a box of Pop-Tarts. Right.
And I didn't realize that breakfast is on the go, like you grab it and you go and you eat it. Like I
Yes.
thought you sat down and you ate, I didn't realize it was on the go.
There's so many healthier options to do grab and goes.
Yeah, she's talking about hard boiled eggs, cheese sticks, things like that. So she's moving in the right direction. I just want to see it.
Any other questions surrounding director reports?
Yeah.
So I really like the format of the cafeteria report, the tech report, the facilities report, the athletics report. They report out on kind of projects they're working on and the status of projects they're working on. Whereas the curriculum and instruction team and the data one are like their timesheet. And I don't really care that they went to a meeting with so-and-so, right? Like, I want to know a little bit bigger picture, what projects they're working on. Like what projects they finished, what they're be working on in the future, right? And so, like the cafeteria one we were just looking at, they were talking about places like people they met, but then also what they got out of it.
Mhm.
And then they're talking about, oh, this sugar thing's coming. Here's what we're doing. We're starting the transition now. This is our plan, right? And so it was not just, we served 700 breakfasts today. It was like, it's got some, I don't know really how to explain it,
Meat and
but
potatoes too.
yeah, it's got like,
It
this
means
is
something.
where we are. This is where we're going. This is like a plan, not just like data report. I don't know.
So
Does that make sense?
it does, and I know earlier in the year, I believe, Ms. Salter raised the request to have a more common report format. I was hoping that there, we would do that at a board retreat to just say, so I get a full picture of what is it you want from administrators in their reports, so there is a consistent format, because even though they do administrative work, depending on whether they're technology or a principal or athletic director, it's gonna look a little bit different, right?
Yeah.
But it could be centered around some particular categories as well. So, but we can take your feedback back to the administration and say, look, what are your projects that you're working on? How does it relate to your goals or your school's goals? And highlighting those. But I would like to, if we do have a board retreat again, to really try to finalize that too.
Yeah.
I don't want the cafeteria one to change. That's very helpful.
Right.
That's like, that one needs to stay like that.
Any other questions surrounding the director report? Right. And to get back to where we once were, Dr. Evans, policy committee update.
Thank you, President Crumley. So tonight the board will be conducting first reads, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different policies. One is on students and personal electronic devices. I'll come back to that. The others come to us mostly from the New York State School Boards Association relative to updates in the field, as well as some updates to our 504 plan that our legal counsel provided us with to make our 504 process a little bit more consistent and tighten it up. So also in here is a policy update to the extreme heat condition regulations. And it bears repeating that that temperature threshold for like a learning space, I think it's 85 degrees. If it reaches that it should be considered, to be vacated where practicable. So what the policy update does, consistent with New York State law, is it says at 82 degrees, you'll take these steps, basically making sure that we monitor the situation. We're on notice for monitoring the situation, but there's nothing in the policy that's a hard and fast. If your room hits X, we're going to empty out that room. So a little more flexibility than the way the law was initially presented. Now, and that comes to us from the New York State School Boards Association. The big first reading that you're conducting tonight is on revisions to the students and personal electronic devices policy. As many of you know, we've been working on this policy for the past several months. The recommendation of the policy committee, the recommendation of the ad hoc cell phone policy committee, is that there be a bell-to-bell ban for students in all schools starting next year. So the way that would work in the elementary classrooms is that students would come in and be expected to have their phones turned off and stored in some type of cubby or some other carrel that they're putting things in. At the secondary level, right now, the plan is that each student would be provided a yonder pouch. The phone would be turned off and placed in the yonder pouch and sealed for the day. And at the end of the day, the last period class, they would be able to open them, turn them back on, and the yonder pouches would stay in the school. We will discuss those in more detail at upcoming parent forums. We have one scheduled for next week, where we'll present on our rationale, what the proposed policy says as of next week, and how we plan on implementing it. Now, depending on how the state budget plays out, this policy may or may not change. There may be things that come out in the state budget where, right now, this policy works, or there may be things that come out and we're gonna have to tweak our policy. But right now, our understanding of what the governor is proposing is consistent with what the board is reviewing tonight. I would also make sure that the board is aware this probably won't be up for a second read at the next meeting, because we plan on having this take effect in September of next year. Okay, so it might be more of a delayed schedule than what we currently do with most policies.
Any questions surrounding policy? Victoria?
What do you mean tweak the cell phone policy?
So we don't know if what comes out in the state budget, if there's particular things around the bell-to-bell ban that's being talked about, that's not included in our policy.
Gotcha.
I don't know what those are, but I don't know what I don't know.
Until they actually
Yeah.
produce it.
And that includes like your iPhone watch.
Yes.
Yes,
Right, okay, so.
any personal electronic device, and the policy defines that.
Says tablets, smartwatches, wireless headphones and earbuds, internet connected accessories, e-readers, calculators, voice recorders, camera and music devices, in addition to the smartphones and the call text phones.
Why
There's
can't you
some
have
teenagers-
earbuds?
Because they're a distraction.
If you can't listen to anything on your phone, how are they a distraction?
Well, there's reports of ways in which students
Just
have
make it
known,
a computer.
students have known how to game the system.
No.
Yes.
No.
I've heard burner phones being used and placed in bags. Yeah,
What is the Yonder pouch? What exactly?
so Yonder's a brand. It's a cloth pouch that seals with a magnet and remains sealed until it's a proprietary magnet that comes with it, until they wipe the bag over the magnet again, and that releases.
So
They carry it with them, so they have the pouch with them.
But if they need them in an emergency, can they open it with that? or no?
Yes, yeah, so there is a provision in the policy that says during emergency situations, teachers or administrators may authorize the use of personal electronic.
But they don't
devices.
have the ability to open that pouch
But classrooms would be outfitted with.
with the ability to open it.
Yes, and
And
there's
then-
other methods as well.
Thank you. I just-
And the reasoning behind turning it off and not just silencing it.
So there's no distraction whatsoever.
And you run the risk of them then gaming the system.
I'm just looking from a parent perspective. If my child has like 360, I want it on and it's there, so I need to know where they are.
If a child is expected to be at school and they don't come to school and attendance is taken, then they're notified. All goes home. Right?
We're talking 25 years ago.
2 hours afterwards, you get a text message.
Mhm.
You don't get a call. We get a text message that we're tardy, they're not in school.
Mhm.
So what happens if someone just absolutely just walks out the door and we don't know about it and they don't,
That sadly can happen. It can happen now. It happens. I'm sure it happens with kids who don't have live 360 tracking. Ultimately, they get picked up and dealt with.
yeah, I don't like that.
Right?
Given the consideration for the policy change, which I understand the problems of the cell phones, I'm wondering, which would not be in the policy, but should be considered, will you be offering or hosting any additional training or reinforcement to staff within the school about communicating with parents effectively because they can no longer reach their children directly. So in instances where a parent would be very interested in knowing where their child is or reaching them and can no longer, and know that they're supposed to be someplace, will we ensure that phones will be answered and lines of communication will be clear, concise, and utilized?
Yes, and we've made that expectation known to our principals relative to if a teacher or if a parent needs to contact the main office, that the phones are being answered, that messages are going through. There are still functional student email accounts. So those aren't being turned off. And we don't want that to be overutilized either and become a distraction for students, but each student has a district provided email address that, can be, if a parent needed to get a message to a student, they can use that method.
I can also say that I have one child that tends to lose his phone a lot, and I call the main office and tell them to have him call me. And, lunch break or study hall, and he ends up calling me, so the messages do get through.
I'm glad to hear that. I've had a couple of instances of challenge points, so I just would hope that everybody would just have a conversation to clarify that.
Yeah.
It's of utmost importance to know that with the shift of policy, that an awareness around good communication practice would be really helpful.
Yes.
Well, we also have to understand that it's gonna be more difficult for the high school students to probably swallow this pill. The middle school students, not so much, but a little bit. The elementary kids, they're probably not gonna really feel it as much, depending on when parents deem it, when their kids get phones, but it's gonna be something that there's definitely gonna be some growing pains. I've already gotten the earful from my daughter, who's gonna be a senior next year. But it is what it is. There's gonna be growing pains there, especially for our seniors, juniors, sophomores who have had phones now probably in their pockets since COVID.
Sure.
But at the same time, we have to look at the other side of the coin of, I do personally feel that that is a distraction that, is probably, I'm sure Mr. Groden could go off on a diatribe, not that we need that, but, there's both sides of that coin.
I'll reiterate and rest at that I think the safety of our students is paramount, and at times appropriate access to your child via cell phone has been an important and relevant tool. And I agree with the policy and understand the need for it.
Yep.
Again, before I rest, assuring that the faculty and staff are all in good communication with each other about how the change will impact communication between home and school, and assuring that there are avenues and opportunities for parents to stay connected.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Any other questions regarding policy? All right, thank you very much.
I'm sorry, one quick question. If a student is a first responder, and there's something with a second call with the fire department, they get a letter or something from the chief, they bring it, that would be something that they would speak directly to the principal about, correct?
So yeah, there is like an exception clause in the policy where a parent or caregiver can appeal to the principal, and the principal on a case-by-case basis would make a determination.
Thank you very much, Dr. Evans. Moving on from policy committee update, we have correspondence outcomes. There is one listed there from our previous meeting. Moving on from there, we have capital project update. And once again, I'll hand it over to Dr. Evans.
Thank you, President Crumley. So there was a draft milestone schedule that our construction management team put together back in early March. I know that had been shared with the capital project committee, but I asked for it to be shared with the entire board. Right now, our designs for phase 1 have been approved by state ed. There was still a question or two about some of the financials, and once those were answered, they're good to go. Is that correct, Ms. Fayla? Any updates since this afternoon?
Not since this afternoon, but we should be expecting full approval, I would assume, in the next couple of days.
Okay, so this is a big milestone, obviously. We're not able to open up the bids for the Cook Elementary classrooms tomorrow. However, they are being grouped with the Fieldhouse bid openings, which are scheduled for May 9th. So we're still tracking on that timeline. Also, and not related to the capital project, but still capital improvements in our district, we've begun work on upgrades at Somerville Field. Some of you may recall several years ago, former Assemblywoman Gunther secured some dormitory authority monies for the district. We proposed some site work changes there. State Ed dragged its feet, or they were inundated with facilities planning. And then when they finally got to ours, that quote was no longer valid, so we had to go back through it, and it basically put it another year down the road. But now we've begun work. We will be installing new basketball courts and pickleball courts at Somerville Field. So you'll see some work being done there. I'm told by Mr. Lewis that it will be done before the end of the school year. So stay tuned for that. We're really happy about that and grateful
Appreciate that.
for Assemblywoman Gunther's work in that.
Is there any way to put some signs up on Somerville Field? Because I see people walking their dogs all through there, doing whatever the dog needs to do on the fields and still sort of thing. So having more children there, I mean, I would think they would want to keep it a little neater.
Yes, we can work on
Yeah,
signs.
it's messy at times.
So that's dormitory money that was already approved.
Yes, yep, that was already,
So I don't have to sign 87 dormitory.
that I can't guarantee.
All right.
No, you shouldn't.
Is he
have
done?
to.
I think
Yeah,
he's done.
you should be done. It's all on me now.
Dormitory money, man.
I know.
Thank you very much, Dr. Evans. Any other questions surrounding capital project? Thank you very much. Moving on from there, upcoming events are listed in your agenda. Obviously, we're coming up towards the end of the school year, so there'll be lots of graduation events, scholarship events, and things like that. So keep an eye out for anything like that, which has a tendency to pop up over the course of the next couple of months. Community events, quite a few articles listed there. Mrs. Foss, any questions or comments from the public?
Yeah, this is fine.
Thank you very much. Moving on from there, we have our superintendent update, Dr. Evans.
Thank you, President Crumley. So some staff recognitions that tonight, the Board of Education will be appointing Josie Wilson as a new family and consumer science teacher in the middle school. She joined our district a little over a month ago as a substitute as she finalized her certification. She's finally done that. And so congratulations, Ms. Wilson, and welcome aboard. Also at the last meeting, we had a number of tenure appointments, but we also had an appointment of a social studies teacher, Ms. Audrey Ann Mann. Ms. Mann will be replacing Mr. Russo in the high school as he transitions into coaching. Ms. Mann had served as a substitute in the middle school for middle school technology. She applied and it was the best candidate that we had. So a belated welcome back, or welcome aboard again, to Ms. Mann. Today, we kicked off our school climate surveys. Parents and caregivers and staff members should have received emails inviting them. I want to thank Ms. Carlin, Ms. Lainey Levinson, and Ms. Bonfante, who spearheaded that effort. These are going to be open over the next several weeks. We hope that this is the school climate survey that's going to be the one that we continue to revisit. K-12 Insight is a fairly known commodity in the field. We will be surveying students in grades 5 through 12. At the last board meeting, last board meeting report, I provided you with some samples of the questions to be asked. The responses are confidential, which means even though the management software kind of needs your email to make sure that you get the email to begin with, for the length of the survey, it will not match your responses to that email, and nor will any administrator be able to see your particular responses. So all answers are confidential. Students will be doing them in school. They don't need to be doing them at home. And a special kind of side effect that came of this, I want to recognize our technology department, whose efforts over the past several years to build staff awareness about identifying spam came true today when they saw an email that had my name on it from an outside vendor saying, click on this link and take this brief survey. A number of staff reported it to technology saying, is this spam or not? So we had to go through and unlock it again and make sure everyone was aware that no, it's not spam. So more to come on that. And that's about it. Everything else we've talked about.
Any questions for Dr. F? Thank you very much, Matt. Moving on from there, we have our Assistant Superintendent for Business update, Mrs. Bailey.
Thank you, President Crowley. This evening, I have the budget and revenue status for February, claims auditor report, and school lunch profit and loss both for the month of February. I'm asking the board to approve the DCMO cooperative purchasing services for next school year. There's a request for the board to accept a donation and amend the general fund budget. This was a donation to the My Brother's Keeper program, but since that's a grant, we don't amend grants that way. We have a dollar amount that we can spend. We can't add to that. So we're amending the general fund so that money can be spent. I'm asking the board to approve the health and welfare services agreement with East Ramapo. Health and welfare services are when our resident students attend private schools in the East Ramapo Central School District, and they provide nursing services or other services. They bill us for that. I'm also asking the board to award the occupational therapy contract services to Rosie Oaks Franklin from 25-26. She's been doing that work for us for many, many years. I have the internal auditor report and corrective action plan for the quarter ending September 24 and December 24. Those two reports were presented to the audit committee at their last meeting. And finally, I have a request from Steve Lewis to access several pieces of equipment that are no longer running and not fixable.
Any questions by Mrs. Jersey?
Two, one on the East Ramapo, it says for the compensation part, based on the 23-24 school year, should that read 24-25 for the compensation? It's on page, I think it's page 3 or 4, 3.
Isn't it?
Yes, it should.
And then the second question is on the RFP for OT services. The resolution says 25-26, but the RFP goes from 25 to 27. Should the resolution state the same?
So we're approving the RFP. So it would be for both school years. I don't think we have to have the year of the resolution because she did bid for 2 years.
Yeah, she didn't change the amount, which was nice, so
Yeah.
that's it. Okay.
So does the resolution need to be changed? Or leave it as 25-26 and then do another resolution for 26-27?
Yeah, because I'll have put up the contract again next school year to approve it just so that we have the approval for the auditors.
Okay.
It just
Okay.
makes it cleaner and then we don't forget a few years from now.
So we're fine on OT. What about East Ramapo?
I'll just, if the board's okay with that, I'll just change that manually and initial it. Because it's just a typo.
Are we okay with that?
Yes.
Very well.
So
Thank you.
East Ramapo, it doesn't have like a date at the top. In the little blank, well,
Usually we pen that in after the board.
okay. Yeah.
Any other questions for Ms. Phelan? Thank you very much, Lisa. Moving on from there, we have our Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction update, Mrs. Carlo.
Thank you, President Crumley. Good evening, everyone. I just have one contract on tonight, and it is a private school contract with business. Just finishing up our grant year through August 31st and making some changes with who they have providing those services. Any questions?
The date on this one is March 1st, 2024. First line.
So, okay, we can do the same thing. We can change that to 25 if the board is okay with that. Unfortunately, even though we consistently ask them not to fill that part in, they do that. And so we just didn't catch that one.
I mean, the term in the contract says March 1st, 2025. It's just the top part that says 24.
Yeah. Is that okay with everyone if we just change it to 25?
Strike an initial.
Okay.
Ashley?
So my question is just, the same as when the budget portion was here. So can you speak on, you spoke a little bit the last meeting we had, about how there would be grant monies for childcare before school if it was more focused towards tutoring, is my understanding, like the Boys and Girls Club has. Now, is there some way that we can work with Healthy Kids to make their program talk on tutoring, and maybe they can make their programs so that we can use them for the grant?
So, couple things. So Healthy Kids is purely a latchkey program. In order to provide tutoring or any kind of educational services, they would either have to be certified teachers, most likely. Their staff is not certified teachers. And so I have brought up to them like homework help
Right.
before, and they are not interested in providing that. They're strictly a latchkey program.
Okay.
And so we would not be able to use grant monies for
Right.
latchkey. They're very specific about that. We can use grant money as long as it's tied to either the grant or the purpose of the grant. We can use that money to provide educational services for our students, such as tutoring after school. But it wouldn't be from Healthy Kids. So they're two completely different things. And when you're providing tutoring services, especially through a grant, you have to make sure you're monitoring exactly, you know, who's tutoring, the certification status. So it's very different. And they do that purposefully because they don't want you to be funding latchkey services.
Right.
Does that answer your question?
It does.
Okay.
So then when we had COVID money, that was just COVID money. And it was really just to help parents and caregivers, families with before and after care. That was just a different situation. And then that money dried up, so to speak. And then we had,
And wasn't
What we have
that,
now.
wasn't that also kind of verbally worded that it was to help students overcome educational gaps because of COVID?
So I don't know that you use, and Lisa would be able to answer this. I don't know that you used any ARC COVID money for latchkey purposes. There was a grant that was funding the after school program that we still have a little bit.
Yeah, the Empire State After School Grant.
okay,
That was used for latchkey Healthy Kids programs.
And that has nothing to do with COVID, and we are still getting that grant currently right now, but as we were told a year ago that the grant was done last year, but then at the last minute, they said, we're gonna squeeze out one more year. That grant comes through OCFS, so it has nothing to do with an education grant, nor is it COVID related.
okay. So going forward, are there any venues for parents and caregivers to be helped by the school, assisted by the school in any way? Because I understand that it's just childcare is very expensive. And to have the childcare at the school where there's consistency, you don't have your babysitter get sick for a week and then you don't have anyone watching your child. It's just, and then it's safe. It's a safe environment to have your child at school. It's just very key to the community. And I would like to offer some solutions. It just doesn't look like there are any. Is that fair to say?
Not unless that grant were to be continued for another year,
Okay,
which depending on how much money they have left, could happen, we don't know.
okay,
Or if there's other grants like it that emerge, and we're not aware of any as we sit. In terms of the school picking up, I don't know that I know there's no money in this the upcoming budget, nor in this current year's budget to fund latchkey programs, right? It's always been out of pocket or the Empire State After School Grant one. So, I don't know that would be possible unless, the board were to allocate money in its general fund budget for childcare services for families.
And we've talked about this before, if someone is eligible for OCFS, then that's one way, and I know that doesn't cover everybody, but there are a lot of people that, what I'm hearing from Healthy Kids, that are or could be eligible, but they just don't apply. Even Healthy Kid has encouraged them to go to OCFS, fill out the application, OCFS, sorry, and they're not.
What
Office
does
of
the,
Child-
Office of Child Family Services. Yep, so if, and from what I understand, a family of four, $90,000 is the gross income cap, not for the whole amount, but for some form of a subsidy, and then it goes down from there, where a lot of our families might be eligible for an entire amount for the after-school program to be covered, but they're just not going and making that application, and we can't do that for them.
And is that after school and before school?
Correct.
Okay, it's for both.
Yes, it is.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
To Ashley's point, just out of curiosity, I know we do for our lunch reimbursements, CACFP, right?
No,
Different, you're different.
we are different.
So with the whole 70%, but like, are those kind of, like, the forms, could they be provided in our offices, or are they for the after? School, like, I don't know, maybe part of it is that people don't know where to go get the forms, because in my other life, like, I have found that families have similar. I don't like trouble finding the form. It's not like they just don't know where to go get it, and so. In the same way that we have I think what's the yellow sheet, right? We ask our families to
Yeah.
fill out at the beginning of each year, if it could just be available in the offices. Maybe if they knew this is a place they could pick the form up and then go to social services and get assistance with filing it or whatever. At least it would be the first step on the journey, is sometimes the hardest.
So
But-
what I'm understanding from Healthy Kids, when I've asked that question, what they're telling me is at the beginning of the school year, when the registration is open, they're directing people, showing them, even sometimes sitting down and helping them with the form. And then as the year goes on, if someone says, I can't afford this anymore, that's the first thing they say is, did you lose your job? Has your income changed because you are eligible? That's what they're telling me they're doing. If that's actually happening, I don't know, but when I've asked that question, that's what they're sharing with me.
I know that you can apply online through the Child Care Council. I don't know if maybe there's a way we can put a link on our website.
We can look.
Something to look into.
any other questions for Teresa? Thank you very much, Mrs. Carlin. Moving on from there. Our action items, I'll throw this over to Mrs. Greco.
I'd like to motion that we consider action items T1 to T20 as a group.
Do I have a second on that by Mrs. LaRusso? Any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries.
I'd like to motion that we approve action items T1 to T20 as a group.
Second by Mrs. LaRusso. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries. Mrs. Greco.
I'd like to motion that we approve action item T21 as a roll call vote.
Do I have a second on that by Ms. Holmes? Any discussion? Mrs. Foss.
Timothy Truman,
Aye.
Wendy Gallagher,
Aye.
Adriana Mason Greco,
Aye.
Todd Roden,
Aye.
Jennifer Holmes,
Aye.
Ellen Jersey,
Aye.
Victoria LaRusso,
Aye.
Megan Stalter,
Aye.
Ashley Riley.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, Mrs. Foss. Mrs. Greco.
I'd like to motion that we approve the ballot for the BOCES board. As none of the people listed are running they're all running unopposed, that we motion it as a slate, accepting all individuals who are listed.
T22.
T22.
Do I have a second on that? By Miss Jersey. Any discussion? Mrs. Foss.
Timothy Truman,
Aye.
Wendy Gallagher,
Aye.
Adriana Mason Greco,
Aye.
Todd Roden,
Aye.
Jennifer Holmes,
Aye.
Ellen Jersey,
Aye.
Victoria LaRusso,
Aye.
Megan Stalter,
Aye.
Ashley Riley.
Aye.
Motion carries. One last time, Mrs. Greco.
I'd like to motion that we approve an action item T23 by roll call vote.
Do I have a second on that by Ms. Holmes? Any discussion? Mrs. Boss?
Timothy Crumley,
Aye.
Wendy Gallagher,
Aye.
Adriana Mason Greco,
Aye.
Todd Broden,
Aye.
Jennifer Holmes,
Aye.
Ellen Jersey,
Aye.
Victoria LaRusso,
Aye.
Megan Stalter,
Aye.
Ashley Riley.
Aye.
Motion carries. Once again, thank you very much, Mrs. Foss. That brings us to closing of meeting, correspondence. There is none listed at this time. I do not believe we have any questions or comments from the public, because I did not see her get up. Which brings us to adjournment. If someone would like to make a motion. Motion by Mrs. LaRusso, seconded by Ms. Holmes. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate it. I don't have, do I need to sign anything?